Hi everyone, I'm Theresa V, and this is the place to be if you are a sensitive love warrior who wants to feel more alive and have more clarity so that you can live your purpose. Today we'll be exploring the question, how does raising my vibration impact my health and wellness? This is the question I've gotten asked more than any other in the past year, so stay tuned. It's important to understand that each of us resonates and vibrates at a certain frequency. This is true for each human being as well as each object and each living thing that exists on our planet. The lower the vibration, the denser the energy. That's not judgment, that's just science. When we as humans are vibrating at a lower frequency, our problems tend to be more all-encompassing. Things take a lot longer to resolve or to figure out, and we may be experiencing a lot of pain and discomfort within our physical bodies. This is, of course, an oversimplification, but you get the idea. The higher the frequency, the lighter the energy becomes. You'll experience greater joy, greater peace, more love, and more personal power. As we work to clear ourselves and do spiritual practices, self-growth work, moving our physical vessels, our energy starts to purify itself. This purification increases our vibrational frequency. The purer the system, the higher it vibrates. This actually happens very naturally as we leave behind old patterns, things that don't resonate in our lives anymore. More spiritual and self-growth work makes the instinct to purify even greater. It amplifies the purification. You'll hear your system asking for certain things. As vibration increases, we tend to become more aware of what we're putting into our system, and we change the situations we find ourselves in, the people we're around, the music we're listening to, the way we ingest food, the way we ingest entertainment and materials. Everything begins to rewire itself. We instinctually look for different stimulus. And the lighter we become energetically, the less need we have for old patterns of survival, for old coping mechanisms, for old unhealthy behaviors. As we do this work, we change our physical, mental, and emotional bodies, and we just begin to let these things go. It's true that denser energies can't exist in a higher vibration, and most of our dis-ease and illness in the body is a much denser energy. It's energy that has become impacted. It's energy that has become crystallized. These denser energies have a harder time existing in a higher vibration. Think about what happened to you when you started doing your spiritual and self-growth work. There were people that couldn't meet you in that vibration, and so they needed to separate themselves from your life. We have the tendency, as we vibrate higher and higher, as caretakers and as healers, to avoid making people uncomfortable. So we bring our vibrations down. And what we're being called to in this new paradigm is to maintain our vibration, to not bring them down regardless of the situation we find ourselves in, so that we can issue an energetic invitation for others around us to raise their vibration and meet us where we are. This isn't out of judgment. This is out of necessity. It is time for us to walk this earth, embracing the frequency that we are capable of holding. And if people are not willing to meet us there, they will leave our lives and other people will come in. And this is the same with energy in our body. Energies that are more dense will leave our system and new energies will come in. So what's the problem? Why do so many spiritual people still get sick? We have many bodies. There are many parts of our aura. We're just going to focus on the 4 that are closest to us: the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical bodies. This physical body is the densest, and they get less dense as they move outward. Dis-ease begins in any of these other bodies and starts moving closer and closer to us if we don't take care of it when it starts to present itself. It grows denser and denser, and by the time it roots in our physical body, it is in its densest form, which means that it takes the most energy and the most time for us to release or transmute. As spiritual people, we are often very comfortable working in the spiritual body. We're constantly working on our practices, doing the next thing, learning the next thing. So we're then in our mental body, listening, learning, reading, figuring out. Those two bodies we're good with. When we get into the emotional body, we start to have problems. The emotional and physical bodies are very foreign to us. And so this is where we make our biggest missteps. All of our bodies don't travel at the same rate because we are not working with them all at the same rate. We're overdeveloping the mental and spiritual bodies, and then we have to let our physical and emotional bodies catch up, which is why our growth very often looks like a staircase where we have to kind of wait at the plateau for all of the rest of our energy to catch up with the huge step we just made. Someone with a very well-developed spiritual practice may have a very underdeveloped experience in the physical system. This disparate energy leaves an opening for dis-ease. There is something that is an energetic mismatch, a vibrational mismatch. Our bodies are always moving at different rates, and this is what leaves us open to having issues. There are a couple of things that we do because of our disconnect with our emotional and physical bodies. The first looks like this. Didn't what he did make you angry? I held it to the light and I transmuted it. We judge our emotions. We have certain emotions that we deem it okay for a spiritual person to experience, and other emotions that we deem absolutely abhorrent, not worthy of our spiritual expression, not okay to have. But the truth is, all of our emotions, the entire range, are part of our experience. Yes, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but that human experience requires that we be made of the same matter as the earth, which means we vibrate with the earth all the time. And when we ignore that connection, we start to have energetic disconnect between our bodies and our environments. We need to give all of our emotions space to express. When we deny ourselves the experience of having emotions, we spiritually bypass the experience. We begin to stuff those emotions down into our body, and we have them just hanging out in the emotional body. And so if we end up not taking care of them, those emotions grow denser and denser and denser, and eventually come into the physical and meet the emotions we've repressed in our physical system and begin to form an impacted, crystallized, dense energy. The other thing that we do looks like this. Didn't what he did make you angry? Oh, I understand that it was just his childhood trauma that made him act that way, so it's fine. Understanding and being able to compassionately relate to somebody doesn't mean that you don't have your own emotional experience with the situation. Our emotional and our mental bodies are two separate things. Bypassing the emotional body and moving right into the mental body, the body where we understand, and into our superpower of compassion, doesn't mean that we did not have a relevant and acceptable emotional experience. We need to give ourselves permission to move through that instead of compassionately bypassing the situation, our emotional experience, and our emotional response. Make no mistake, our superpower of compassion and our powers of using our spiritual tools appropriately, those are incredibly beautiful things, and they have their place, but their place needs to come after we actually do the processing of how we feel about or in a situation. So what would be a more appropriate response? Didn't what he said make you angry? It did, and I met that anger. I let it move through me. I asked it what it had to show me, and I uncovered so much about myself just by getting in touch with it. I do understand that it was his childhood trauma that made him act that way, but it still hurt at the time, and it's really not an excuse. Now that I'm not as attached to the situation, I can see it more clearly, and I can hold it to the light for transmutation. In terms of health and wellness, there are so many factors that we have to consider, not just vibration. But vibration can help change our relationship to every one of these factors. We're not going to go into them all. We're going to go into some of the ones that we don't look at as often. When we talk about genetic predisposition to certain dis-eases, there are a couple of ways that science and spirituality are now agreeing that we need to look at things. We know that we are not stuck with our genetic makeup. There's epigenetic work, there is energy work. There are things that we can do to start shifting these things for ourselves. But at the same time, when we look at genetic predisposition in terms of our physical system and what we've inherited through our physical experience here, we also have to consider that we've inherited behaviors through our genetic line, ways of coping and responding, ways of being in the world that may activate these genes that would be latent otherwise. We're observing nature versus nurture when it comes to genetic predisposition. How much of it is one, how much of it is the other, and how can we address the entire package? It's erroneous to think that if you raise your vibration, you'll never ever get sick or experience dis-ease in your body. Though chances are you'll be healthier and experience more wellness in general, there are other things at play as well. Karma is one of them. We have received divine dispensation in the recent past, which means that we can move through a lot of our karmic cycle much more quickly. So we may be clearing hundreds of lifetimes of karma in this one lifetime, or we may be experiencing it to a much lesser degree than we would have experienced it otherwise. This divine dispensation has been such a blessing and is one of the things that is allowing the earth and the living beings to vibrationally shift as quickly as we are. We also have our soul lessons, those things that our soul chose to work through in this lifetime. These lessons are non-negotiables. These are things that we signed on to learn, and until we learn those things, our soul cannot advance to the next place. So, whatever it takes for us to learn those lessons, we at the soul level are okay with, because that was our biggest concern when incarnating. We also have to look at the samskars. These are the karmas that are much bigger than these other little karmas that we can work out through divine dispensation. These are the things that at the great soul level we need to figure out as a collective soul as well as our individualized soul. And these are things that can't be unwritten, things that we have chosen to move through, and they may take many, many lifetimes to figure out. So these are factors that also contribute to our continued wellness and our continued health. One of the things that has become really apparent in the spiritual community is vibrational shaming. And here's what we mean by that. Did you see that Jasper got COVID again? Dude, this is the second time he's had COVID. He's supposed to be so high vibrating. He's obviously not doing something right. I am so unfollowing him. I can't. Remember that everything that we say and do externally is said and done at least 10 to 100 times worse internally. As we judge and shame others, we are doing the same thing to ourselves. And we see this all the time. When there is illness, when there is dis-ease in the body, we move right into, what did I do wrong? How did I fail? I didn't practice enough. I should have done more. I could have, whatever the situation is. We move into the place of judgment and shaming and lower our vibrations, when what we really need at these vulnerable points is to use that energy as strength. Bring that energy back, and instead of judging ourselves, say, okay, so this is where I am now. How do I move forward from here? And pull that energy in and utilize it for forward momentum instead of bringing it outside of ourselves and using it to clobber ourselves with, so that we feel worse, so that we feel ashamed, so that we don't have the energy that we need to heal ourselves from the inside out. This state of defensiveness and judgment closes us off also to the clarity that we could have and the tremendous opportunities for healing in every single second. So we need to stop wasting time judging ourselves and others when we move into a place of dis-ease, discomfort, or illness. Remember that no matter how much we wish it were, life is not a straight line. It never has been, and it probably never will be. There are times where we're going to dip into lower vibrations, and there are times when we're going to find ourselves soaring at the highest vibration suddenly and without explanation. When we can just be honest about where we are, we can have the clarity to know where we need to go from there without the need to hold on to that state so tightly that we stop growing, shifting, and changing. We can figure out what we need to do next and how we need to change things. It's also important for us to remember that we need to exist on this earth in a comfortable way. We are part of the earth. We are part of her ecosystem, this beautiful planet that loves and supports us. We energetically divorce ourselves from her so often. And so by focusing on raising our vibration in the proper ways and feeling what we are feeling in the moments we're feeling them, asking for clarity, listening into our body, we can keep our feet on the ground and keep creating and co-creating a more and more magical experience for ourselves and for everyone else. As always, thank you so much for being part of this community, for leaving these amazing comments, for sharing these videos out far and wide. I so appreciate you. And if you feel called to heal at a deeper and deeper level, please consider joining our group energy therapy session on May 11th. This will be a call, and you will receive energy work as a group so that we can all heal and move forward together. Information about this experience is in the description of this video or in the comments below. I look so forward to witnessing what magic you create and co-create in your health and in the world. So much love.